Russia, or the Russian Federation, is a country spanning Eastern Europe and North Asia. It is the largest country in the world and extends across 11 time zones, sharing land borders with 14 countries. With over 140 million people. Russia is the most populous country in Europe and the 9th most populous in the world. It is a highly urbanized country, with 16 of its urban areas having more than 1 million inhabitants. Moscow, the most populous metropolitan area in Europe, is the capital and largest city of Russia, while St. Petersburg is its second largest city and cultural center. Human settlement on the territory of modern Russia dates back to the Lower Paleolithic. The East Slavs emerged as a recognized group in Europe between the 3rd and 8th centuries CE. The first East Slavic state, Kievan Rus, arose in the 9th century, and in 9088, it adopted Orthodox Christianity from the Byzantine Empire. Kievan Rus ultimately disintegrated. The Grand Duchy of Moscow led the unification of Russian lands, leading to the proclamation of the Tsardom of Russia in 1547. By the early 18th century, Russia had vastly expanded through conquest, annexation, and the efforts of Russian explorers, developing into the Russian Empire, which remains the 3rd largest empire in history. However, with the Russian Revolution in 1917, Russia's monarchic rule was abolished and eventually replaced by the Russian SFSR, the world's first constitutionally socialist state, following the Russian Civil War. The Russian SFSR established the Soviet Union with 3 other Soviet republics, within which it was the largest and principal constituent. The Soviet Union underwent rapid industrialization in the 19th amidst the deaths of millions under Joseph Stalin's rule, and later played a decisive role for the Allies in World War II by leading large-scale efforts on the Eastern Front. With the onset of the Cold War, it competed with the United States for ideological dominance and international influence. The Soviet era of the 20th century saw some of the most significant Russian technological achievements, including the first human-made satellite and the first human expedition into outer space. In 1991, the Russian SFSR emerged from the dissolution of the Soviet Union as the Russian Federation. A new constitution was adopted, which established a federal semi-presidential system. Since the turn of the century, Russia's political system has been dominated by Vladimir Putin, under whom the country has experienced democratic backsliding and become an authoritarian dictatorship. Russia has been militarily involved in a number of conflicts in former Soviet states and other countries, including its war with Georgia in 2008 and its war with Ukraine since 2014. The latter has involved the internationally unrecognized annexations of Ukrainian territory, including Crimea in 2014 and 4 other regions in 2022. During an ongoing invasion, Russia is generally considered a great power and is a regional power, possessing the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons and having the 3rd highest military expenditure in the world. It has a high-income economy, which is the 11th largest in the world by nominal GDP and 4th largest by PPP, relying on its vast mineral and energy resources, which rank as the second in the world for oil and natural gas production. However, Russia ranks very low in international measurements of democracy, human rights, and freedom of the press, and also has high levels of perceived corruption. It is a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, a member state of the G20, SCO BRICS, APIC OSCE, and the leading member state of post-Soviet organizations such as CSTO and EAEU. Russia is home to 32 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Etymology main article. Names of Rus. Russia and Ru. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the English name Russia first appeared in the 14th century, borrowed from medieval Latin. Russia, used in the 11th century and frequently in 12th century British sources, in turn derived from Rusi, the Russians, and the suffix. There are several words in Russian which translate to Russians in English. The noun and adjective Ruski refers to ethnic Russians. The adjective Rossieski denotes Russian citizens, regardless of ethnicity. The same applies to the more recently coined noun, Rossianin, in the sense of citizen of the Russian state. The oldest endonyms used were Rus and the Russian language. According to the Primary Chronicle, the word Rus is derived from the Rus people, who were a Swedish tribe, and from where the three original members of the Rurikid dynasty came from. The Finnish word for Swedes, Ruotsi, has the same origin. In modern historiography, the early medieval East Slavic state is usually referred to as Kievan Rus, named after its capital city. Another medieval Latin name for Rus was Rus. In Russian, the current name of the country comes from the Byzantine Greek name, G Omega Sigma Y Alpha. The name was first attested in 1387. The name Russia appeared in Russian sources in the 5th-10th century and began to replace the vernacular Rus during the rise of Moscow as the center of a unified Russian state. However, until the end of the 17th century, the country was more often referred to by its inhabitants as Rus, the Russian land, or the Muscovite state, among other variations. In 1721, Peter the Great proclaimed the Russian Empire. The name Russia was used as the common designation for the multinational Russian Empire, and then for the modern Russian state. Russia is distinguished from the ethnym Ruski, as it refers to a supranational identity, including ethnic Russians. After the Russian Revolution and the proclamation of the Russian SF, the Russian in the title of the state was Rossiskia rather than Ruskaya, as the former denoted a multinational state, while the latter had ethnic dimension. In modern Russian, the name Rus is still used in poetry or prose to refer to either the older Russia or an imagined essence of Russia.